Hey, it's Nick, and today I'm going to present the third in a series of presentations on my banking web application that uses Java EE technologies. The first video, we went over an overview of what the project is and what dependencies you might need to have in place if you wanted to run this application on your own computer. And we looked at how to deploy the web application from Eclipse into your Tomcat web apps folder so that you could actually use the web application in a browser like we are here. In the second video, we looked at how to create a new account, a new login account for a new user. And in this video, we are going to look at a couple of things. First, we're going to look at how to add a account type to a login account. So really that's just for a certain user adding a kind of banking account. So we already have a savings and a checking account here. We'll add, say, a 401k account to this user. And we're also going to look into how we're implementing the session stuff for a user, like just how we can persist this information about a user while they're logged in, and how can we make sure that a user must be logged in to look at some of this information and be able to add accounts to the database and view database information. So we're implementing that in a security class, and we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a couple of JSP files, and we're going to look at a servlet. So first of all, let's go to MySQL Workbench and let's run a fresh query. We only have 2 tables in here, and again, in the second video we created this user with ID 999 for Nick Sweeney. So this user would log into the website with 999 and 1234 as their password, and that would be their username. And each user can have 0 or many accounts associated. So right now user 999 has 2 accounts, 1 checking and 1 savings. And we're going to add another account to this user. And then we're going to look at how our code persists that new account information in the database, and also how it displays information from the database that's associated with the currently logged in user. So let's add the new account first. Notice here again 2 accounts only right now. We've got my name here. I'm going to add a 401k account with $90,000 in it. And so cool, now we have 3 accounts associated with this user, and we have this new one that we just added. Let's go check the database to be sure that that information was persisted. And user 999 now has a 401k with 90 grand in it. It was created today. Okay, so let's go into the code now and see how our application is implementing this functionality. The first thing we'll look at is the user accounts page. This is where we want users to end up after they've created a new login account or after they've successfully logged in. And what we're going to do here is we're going to find out if this user is logged in already or not. If they aren't logged in, we're going to create a new user object that's just a dummy object. And when that dummy object is passed into this method, nothing is returned. So right now I'm letting users go to the user account and new account pages, though they can't do anything useful or do anything harmful on those pages. We still shouldn't let them navigate there if they're logged in. I just haven't implemented the functionality to stop them from being able to navigate to those pages yet. So instead of doing all that work, I just have this little else clause here to let them view that page as an anonymous user, but there's nothing, again, useful or harmful that they can do there. But if they are logged in, which we can find out if they're logged in by calling this request object. Remember that when our servlets use a response to pass a new web page to the user. Let me show you that real quick because I don't think that came out well. Let's see, register servlet. So when a new user was created, we looked at this in video number 2. We added that user to the database, and then we called this response.sendDirect. So that's how that user, after they created a new account, that's why they landed on the user accounts.jsp, because we used that response object to redirect them. And there's some interesting things here. We logged in the user here, and we also set a session attribute of user to the object current user. And this is how we're storing this user's session information and how their unique information is persisted between different web pages, all because that user is saved in the session under the attribute user, and the user must be logged in to get that session attribute set. So how do we make sure that the user can log in? Basically, we're just going to query the database to make sure that that ID and password that the user passed in corresponds to an entry in our user table. So we're making sure that if they put in 9991234, making sure that that is valid. That's what we're doing right here. And how are we doing that? We're creating an ATM security object called secure. And then we're calling the login method of that object and passing in that ID and PIN number. So how does that work? Login. We're creating a new login request with the user ID and PIN. And then we're going to authenticate that login. So that calls another method inside of ATM security. That method is going to call our data layer. It's going to connect to it, and it's going to try to get the ID of the user, and if there's a problem, we're going to catch an exception. If that user is null, so if this returns nothing, which means that it couldn't find an ID, a valid ID in the database, if that's null, or the PIN that's associated with that user in the database is not equal to the PIN that user passed in, which means that their password doesn't match what's in the database. If either of those are true, it's going to throw an exception and say PIN mismatch. Or could just say invalid login or whatever you like. But that is how we're making sure that we have a valid user logged into the session. And both of the pages that send a user to user accounts.jsp, the register servlet, and also the login servlet, they both are doing the same thing. they're logging in the user just by making sure that's a valid user in the database, and as long as it is, then, because otherwise we would be throwing an exception here. As long as it is, we're going to set that session attribute for that user, and they'll be able to, the application will be able to use that information throughout the session until the user logs out. So I hope that's clear. Let's go back to user accounts. So all that stuff with the ATM security object and all that, that's all done up here. We're making sure that we have that attribute set, and we're also making sure that it's an instance of user, then we're casting it to user. So now we've got a valid object in this session for a user object, and we could pass that user object into this data access method, and that method is going to return a list of all the accounts that are associated with the user. So let's go look at the data access's get user accounts. Is right here. It takes in a user, and it must be a valid user, and it will be if it's gotten to this point. And we're gonna call a prepared statement, and that prepared statement finds all the accounts by looking up the user's ID, all of the accounts that are associated with it. So for instance, if that user ID is 999, it's going to return the savings account, the checking account, and the 401k account, which once the JSP page has access to that information, it'll know their 3 accounts and it'll know their names. So that's how that information is getting to the HTML page. All because we've made sure that we have a valid user, the login and password is right, and then we've queried the database on a foreign key from that user that's associated with the account table. So now that we have that reference, we can display, this is the actual display page. We've got a little script here, and there's better ways to do this, but this is an easy way to look at how you can use some information in a JSP page, writing some Java. So this is where a number of accounts and the account names are coming from. So that's the user accounts page. And I'm realizing I'm running out of time. So the next video, I'm going to be showing the new account JSP and the servlet that's associated with that. So thanks for watching.